Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective podcast. As always, I am your host, Sean Tasse, joined by my illustrious co-host and beautiful partner, Kyle P. Beautiful partner. I'm messing up your name. Kyle Miller is your name. In case you know, I just call you beautiful. I just want to say people right after. You are a beautiful person, Kyle. How are you doing?
Oh, living the dream, boss. Living the dream as
Right?
usual.
Isn't it? You know what? It's sun setting later, everything's good. It's getting warmer during the days, longer days. It's busy. I don't know about you. I've talked to some agents like, oh, feels like it's slowed down in the last like week or two. I'm like, it sounds like you didn't fill your pipeline. You did all your business, so you got nothing left. I'm like, it's not that slow. But it is what it is. It is what you make of it, I guess, eh?
No, I got a huge uptick in apps this week. Like I think I'll officially say I'm actually behind. And I'll apologize to those people. It's been jammed with just it's a combination of everything. I think the deals that are hitting our desk are harder to do.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. You spend a lot more time working a file to get it to get it to the right place, working with the lenders. And then on top of that, just standard people trying to get pre-approvals because the rate market's volatile. So
Yeah.
you're just there's just a lot of things going on, a lot of work that we don't get paid for, actually. But then again, looking at it, a lot of the people that are here now that I'm working with were here 6 months ago. Like we're just they're more serious, they're more ready to go. The information we gave them is now translating to what we got to do next. So it was a pipeline filler, and here we go. Like it's May 2nd. Let's rock and roll.
Where whenever I hear you guys telling me, oh, hey, I've got a lot of apps coming through, it leads me to believe that, hey, if you're ready to buy, now's the time because there's gonna be a landslide of people. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who you think might like this kind of conversation. You can also download the buyer or seller guides below or schedule an appointment with Kyle or I in the Calendly links. Rubber baby buggy bumper.
Toastmasters is doing well for you.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Of course, we've got a bit of a topic here. I've got a bit of a story, and I want to talk today a little bit about the benefit of hiring a local professional as opposed to not hiring a local professional and what that means. And I'm talking hyper local, specifically in my neighborhood. Now, this might sound like me complaining that I didn't get a listing for a house around the corner from me. Not at all. What it is talking about the benefit of hiring a local agent. We'll get into a couple of stories about why that matters, and then even on a bigger scale, I've got some horror stories from people hiring an agent from Toronto to help them buy a property in Ottawa. So that's what I've got for story time, and I guess I'll just kind of jump right into it, and we'll see where it leads us, where it takes us. When you bought your house, Kyle, how long ago was that? Do you remember?
Roughly it'll be 11 years actually in June next
Nice.
month. Yeah.
And the agent that you hired, I mean, you know dozens of us at least, if not hundreds. Who did you hire, and what did you make your pick based on?
Georgie, Stephen George,
Yeah,
Century 21.
yeah,
And Steve was probably literally one of the first agents who gave me a shot, actually.
yeah,
And also, our kids were the same age, played hockey together. I played hockey with him, so I knew him well.
yeah.
And it was a comfort level. It was a comfort level with him. So
And
that was it.
he's an Orleans guy too, right? Your house is in Orleans. He's an Orleans guy. Like it all sort
Yeah,
of ends up, right?
yeah, Orleans guy, and turned out actually it was a listing that he had, which we ended up working with. Like that's the one we ended up going with, which was more coincidence than anything. It wasn't what we were looking for, but
Right.
it was just one of the listings he had, and it works. And yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you never normally expect that to happen, but sometimes it did. We did a deal earlier this week where we were representing the seller and the buyer. It was really funky because another offer showed up. So one of the partners on the team, Elliot, he's got a listing, and he brought the buyer to the listing, and then after he brought the offer, like 10 minutes after, another offer shows up from another agent in our brokerage, and it runs the risk of really looking bit has the potential of looking sus. Obviously, it isn't. It's a good dude. He's not going to do it like that. But again, the benefit of the collective is he was able to tap me in and say, "Hey, man, I don't want for this other offer to bid each other up and they end up losing by $5,000. Like that would not look good. So, hey, Sean, can you jump in here and stick handle the seller side for me? I'll work with
So
it."
what's
Mhm.
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. So walk through that because that has always intrigued me. Like I remember like we were double end Steve was double ending that deal.
Yeah,
And right. And I remember having a conversation with him and he's like, look, this is what I can tell you.
yeah,
Right. And I can't go beyond this.
yeah.
Right. And so how does that translate here? Like someone else from the brokerage slides one in. So what are the optics that Elliot would have put his on top of theirs? That just looks bad because but if it's multiple offers, it's not first in.
It's
Just
sorry, so he would put his on top of theirs monetarily. So the fear is that the second person in says, "Oh, well, they know what our offer is, so they're just gonna
ah
buy whatever." That's why I jumped in to say, no, no, no. There's a separation here between the two sides because if Elliot was working for the seller, he would know what both of the offers were.
right. So in theory,
Yeah,
right, he could have got he this didn't happen. We're
right.
speaking hypothetically.
Yes, 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 yes.
The offer from someone else in the brokerage came in at 5 p.m. and he was about to get his offer done here, and he goes, "Oh, look at that! You know what, guys? Can you go up 10 grand? Let's go up 10 grand." And then that happens. It's like, oops, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Whoop, there it is.
Yeah, just hear it playing in the background now.
Tag team back again.
Yeah, this goes in a totally different direction now. Yeah,
I mean, listen, man, that was Dance Mix 93, I think.
could have been Much Music.
Yeah,
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 those were the days. We're old. We're old.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
See at the video dance on Friday.
That's right. Remember the video dances? Wow. Yes. That was my jam in grade seven.
The
Whoop.
best $2,700 that any school could spend.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Much Music Video Dance Party.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway,
we digress as we often.
yes,
But yeah,
I
so that's the
digress.
idea, right? Is that,
Okay.
you know, of course, Elliot wouldn't do that. And I'm pretty sure that there are, I'm sorry to say, other agents who would, right? We don't want to be that. We don't want to be associated with that. We don't want to show up like that. We don't want the risk to be, hey, maybe they did do that. So we just said, you know what? We've got a team. We've got a group here. Sean, you can easily slide in. I know what my offer is, and it worked out. So now, in terms of timing, that offer died at 5 p.m. So they submitted at like 2 o'clock, and their offer died at 5. So it was very very fast, like turnaround. And I said, hey, just so you know, because they didn't know when they submitted that there was another offer, right? Just so you know, you're in multiple offers. Would you like to resubmit? No, we don't want to resubmit. Okay. Whereas Elliot's offer that he submitted was good until 10 p.m. So the offer at 5 o'clock died. We sent a counter offer to the other people whose offer died at 10 p.m. and they accepted it. So it was just, here's what it is, no harm, no foul. The reason that the second, or that Elliot's people accepted the offer is because they were thinking, oh, well, we're now running a risk that if we don't accept the offer and we send a counter offer, these people might come back to the table and we don't like the idea of fighting for this property. What do we need to do to get it? Here's what we want to pay. Here's what we're willing to do. This is a little bit more than we wanted to pay and what we're willing to do, but you know what? We'll do it to have the peace of mind that it's ours. So, so that was a deal that we did on whatever it was Tuesday. What are we today? Wednesday, Thursday? Yeah, so that was Tuesday night, and it was an absolute team effort because Amanda takes care of our paperwork and she's bouncing between the buyers and the seller. And we're at an event at the Infinity Center, like a celebration or a
Those
recognition.
are your awards, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Congrats on that, by the way. Saw that post.
Thanks. You know what? I'll tell you, man, it was hard for me to go there. Our output last year, across everybody's output last year, was terrible compared to what it was the year before. And so going there and getting the award and saying, hey, yeah, we got an award, that was half of what it was the year before, was like, what are we celebrating here? But someone made a very good comment. They said, hey, this isn't about you. It's about showing to other people, hey, this is what's possible. Here's what you can do. And for a lot of people, the award that you're getting is a big fucking deal. So shut up, go celebrate, eat the free food, and take the pictures or whatever, right? So
Yeah,
it was good. It was certainly a an opportunity to again to move my ego off to the side and think about what's best for everybody instead of just me. So as you might know, there are real estate agents that have egos.
really.
I know, right?
That guy, man, that guy,
That one guy, yeah.
that one guy.
Yeah, so that's we're totally digressing. We have not talked at all about the benefit of hiring a local agent, but hey, we chit chat. Well, that's not true. Yeah, you talked about hiring your local agent, and it worked out well, right? You got your house, everything worked out well for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure, for sure. It was, yeah, it was the right thing. I mean, it felt, it felt, it felt comfortable. I mean, I've seen it too, where you've got, seen it too, where you've got agents just because I'm surrounded by so many of them,
Yeah,
and you see them bouncing things off each other, and you can see where that's where the benefit is of being of knowing agents, but also knowing the regions. Like I think one of the simplest things is like a septic system, right? An agent who heads south of Hunt Club, right, and says and gets out there and is like, "Holy crap, what the hell is this in Osgood where where I got to deal with a septic," right? And it's 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 easy, but it's simple, but it's not easy,
yeah,
right? Like, I mean, there's millions of people who don't even know what that is or how it works.
right.
I've had one growing up. I have on my new house that I'm building. It's a completely different system. I don't even understand it,
Yeah,
right? So, like, if someone comes to sell that house later, I'm gonna want to know they know how to deal with that and talk about that because it's a thing. So, and if you don't, like, you could be walking your client into, especially if it's their first time, you walk your client into a heap of, pardon the pun, shit. If you don't know what you're doing with it, right? And like, so,
yeah.
and how to maintain that. So it's something like that that's so simple, but not simple, and such a big deal. That's where hiring someone local could make a massive difference for that.
Just shit and peat moss.
Here you go. Perfect. Super simple. Fire it on Google. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I mean definitely, hiring a professional to help you through that. One thing I'll get into my two stories in my neighborhood in the second half, but one thing I heard about a lot and I'm seeing it firsthand is there's a community just outside of Ottawa called Richmond. You might have heard of it. It's sort of south of Canada and west of Barhaven, right? And a little bit further south of that, and a little bit further west of that, but it's not too far out, right? But they were building a lot of houses. Some builders were building a lot of houses out there, and when they were, and I think we talked about this in a different grade, but this is the part that I kind of want to harp on. Is there was a very big push to sell a lot of these homes to a particular cultural community from Toronto. And they said, hey, go invest in these houses. The rates are so low right now. They're 3 or 4% or 2% in some cases. Back in 2021, when they made the purchase offer, they didn't lock in the rate by hiring the local. There's always a guy at the buildings at the sales office that'll give you a rate lock. A lot of them didn't do the rate lock because they wanted to get their friend or whatever. But their advice from their agent in Toronto was, hey, go and buy a property in a suburb of Ottawa. It's called Richmond. Go and buy a property there, and it's in a suburb of Ottawa. You're going to have great rents, and the interest rates are low. Not knowing Ottawa as a Toronto agent and promoting it as a suburb of Ottawa, absolutely incorrect. It is not a suburb of Ottawa. You've got three, maybe four, maybe five suburbs of Ottawa. You've got Orleans, Canada, Barhaven. Maybe you put Stittsville on there as an extension of Canada. Maybe you put Riverside South on there as an extension of Barhaven. Maybe you throw Finley Creek in there as an extension. That's about it. I mean, you're not going to put Navan. You're not going to say Rockland is a suburb of Ottawa. It's too far out, right? You're not going to
So
say
what is it? Is it just semantics though? Like, what's the problem?
the problem is the values in these outlying other communities, the Richmonds, the Carleton Place, the Smiths Falls, the Rocklands, they're not the same as the suburban values, right? So to say it's a suburb of Ottawa,
Okay.
it's misleading. Now the real kicker is that a lot of these people from Toronto think, oh, Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill is like a
Yeah.
super high end neighborhood in Toronto. And so they're thinking, hey, this is great. I can buy a place in the Richmond Hill.
Richmond Hill of Ottawa.
Right,
Yeah.
which it's not, right? Not at all, but the name is the same. And so it created this idea that, oh, well, the values here are going to go through the roof. They're not, because it's not the same thing. But they just had their Toronto agent saying, hey, yeah, the numbers are good. It makes sense. And then a bunch of people from this community all got saddled with houses that they overpaid for, aren't selling, and they can't rent for enough to cover their costs. So,
Hmm.
on a big enough scale, I would never sell a house in Toronto. Don't know enough about it. Not going to pretend that I do. I'll go within our board. Like we'll go to as far as Arn Prior. I'll go down to Brockville, but it's only as required, and that's all based on what's on our board, on our real estate board, right? And I'll tell clients like, look, I'm not the expert of this location. I'll help you, but I don't want to pretend that I know the ins and outs of this the same way like I can tell you about who lives on what street in my neighborhood. We'll save the neighborhood section for the second half. There's a lot of me talking, so uh,
Some days it's just gonna be that. That's okay.
that's
That's
you're,
okay. Some
you're
days I'm just buried in my computer doing applications and I don't have cool stories. I have
right.
one, but some days that's the way it's gonna be.
That's all right. We'll take a quick pause there. We'll jump back in the second half. As always, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this with someone who you think might like this or might be valid for them. And you can download the Calendly app below, or you can book an appointment with us, or you can watch us on YouTube or listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And we'll see you back on the flip side. This episode of the Real Collective Podcast is brought to you by Real Collective Marketing, the marketing agency that specializes in the unique needs and budgets of small to medium-sized businesses. We provide turnkey marketing solutions that get results. We become an extension of your team and act as your virtual marketing department, designing and implementing cost-effective strategies that will help grow your business. You can find out more today at www.realcollectivemarketing.ca. Now, here's your hosts, Sean and Kyle. Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the second half of the Real Collective Podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about why you need to hire a professional and a local realtor. But before we do, Kyle, you tell me a little bit offline about why you need to hire a professional local mortgage broker, not just real estate agent. Hit it.
Well, yeah, I think there's two things that are happening right now. And it's one is the fact that we're so since the pandemic, our business, specifically mortgage side, has changed drastically,
Yeah.
right? And we can be virtual, we can be everywhere, and a lot of mortgage agents do that, right? I know several agents who have just decided like this weather is not for me. No, they've moved down to hotter climates, Florida, Mexico. I had a friend of mine who lives in Panama now, and she was still doing mortgages up till I don't know, like January. She just retired from the business, but whatever. And it works because this is how we do things,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that's on one hand, that's very interesting and advantageous. But the other thing is that those people are still focused in their own market. Came from Ottawa, Ontario, that's where they're doing business. They're
Right.
not necessarily saying like, I'm in Panama and I'm trying to do something in Saskatchewan, right? Like they're not necessarily doing that. They're still sticking to their focus. It's just logistically they can literally be somewhere else.
Interesting.
And the other part of it too is the fact that we're so highly regulated, like that the licensing aspect of it becomes a thing where you need to know you need to know how to handle that because of insurance, and protections for the client, um, specifically protections for the client. But a couple things too is that when you get into provincial stuff, this just came to mind. We didn't even talk about this. There's different lenders that can only operate within the province.
Right.
So I might have 30 lenders, and 15 or 16 of them might be nationally, might be available nationally. But then we've got local provincial credit unions that
Yes.
do stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
and do stuff differently. So you're doing a disservice to your client by not having access to that.
Yeah.
So that's where having partners is fine. I've got people who want to deal with me. I just did a deal in Alberta because the clients wanted to deal with me. They didn't like what they were getting at the bank. They were referred to me. Can you do it? Yes, I got a partner out there that can do the paperwork, the missing paperwork we need, and
Yeah.
everything else is going to be fine. Awesome, right? The same point, when it is as annoying as it is, 20 feet from here is Quebec, and I'm in the middle of trying to do a deal over there, and it just that is a different beast, right? We get so simplified that like every province and everything runs the same. Okay, first of all, I think we all know nothing runs the same over there. Not bad, not worse, just saying not the same. And I know how to do deals over there. But again, regulations have changed. Things are different. Licensing is completely different to where I need a partner to do stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so cumbersome and so different. I literally told the clients, I'm like, okay, I'm still working this, but I'm like, you really should just set up an appointment with a credit union in Quebec, in Gatineau, and go.
Yeah.
I may get nothing, but just go and cover it because I'm doing them a disservice by thinking I'm so good at great, and I am, but I'm like that I'm gonna make that I'm we can ruin the experience and make it harder on them and us, right? And when you do that, you also kill your other clients. They're not my only deal. I've got
Right.
10 other ones on the go. And if I'm stuck fumbling through this crap,
Yeah.
right? Not the clients, just the way the process is,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not my specialty or whatever it is, just ruining their experience, and I'm kicking everybody else down the road.
Yeah.
So it's like I think that's where that different knowledge base and understanding that can make it better, right? If you're an agent and you don't know how to deal with a septic, you don't know how to deal with acreage or country, right? You're doing yourself and your client a disservice by fumbling through that. I mean, we all have to learn, but at the same point, it's you got to be aware. If you got to be self-aware enough to know where your strengths are and
Yeah.
how to work with it,
Yeah. No,
and be willing to let it go. You have to be willing to let it go for the client's sake.
yeah, it's about moving yourself out of the way, moving your ego out of the way, and doing what's best for your client. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Get out of your own way for
Yeah.
sure.
I had just switching gears a little bit, talking about my particular neighborhood. I'm my neighborhood, like I'm right beside where you live, or where you work.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
right, and so there was a house around the corner from me, and they put it up for 1.150, and big house, 6 bedrooms, needed a bunch of updating, but big house, no backyard, and it sold in 3 days after like a bunch of showings for 1.150. And I everybody who I showed that house to, I think 3 or 4 different people, and everyone I showed it to was like, wow, why is it so inexpensive? Why is the price so low? What's happening here? What am I missing? Like, oh well, it's older, it needs updating. Well, does it need updating? It could do with some updating, but it didn't need updating. It was livable the way it was. And there's no backyard. Okay. So I sort of thought to myself, yeah, this is low. I really think it's worth more like 1.2 than 1150. And so there was a part of me that thought, hey, look, if the right buyers were willing to pay 1150 for the house, do you think there's a chance they would have paid 1.2 for it as well? If that was the price, because they just paid the price, right? And everyone is saying, oh, this seems like too good to be true. Like it's a really good deal.
Could you not argue it was just priced right? If they paid the price and bought it, it's
I
priced
mean,
right.
yeah,
Is that not the argument?
absolutely, that's the argument. But because I know my specific neighborhood, I'm in every single house that's for sale in my neighborhood. There's only 400 houses that are in that neighborhood, and I know it. And I know who the buyers are. I know who's moving in. I know what their sort of level of affluence is, etc. And so, I didn't just go to it. I went to it with one past client, some friends from the neighborhood, and some other neighbors. So like we looked at it a bunch of times, and I even spoke with another agent about it who went to look at it.
Like,
Who
were you just going in as an annoying neighbor, or did you bring clients?
I mean, I brought potential clients who were looking at it from a perspective of I mean, the house was vacant. I wasn't it
Oh, I
wasn't
was gonna go check it out.
I
You're that guy. You're the guy at the open house everybody talks about. No, I'm just a neighbor. I'm not here to buy.
listen. I don't go to the open house. I don't go to, actually that's not true. I went to one open house once, but I went with clients. I won't go to the open house. I'll just book a showing, right? Book a showing or a preview.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah,
We're allowed to do previews, right? Like, hey, preview this,
yeah.
figure out what it is, see if it's the right fit for your client or whatever, whatever. So, anyways, that's what he did. Anyways, we went in, had a look, and I really thought to myself, I'm like, man, if they'd have priced it at 1250, or if they'd have priced it at 1200, would those buyers have just paid 1250 or 1200? They paid what it was listed for. They were the only offer. They were expecting multiple offers. They didn't get it. They had one buyer. The one buyer paid what they were willing, what they were asking. The end. So the argument, of course, is hey, that's what it's worth. But I really think the listing agent who lives and works in the East End, who was hired by the executor of the estate to come and sell a property in the West End, applied, and this is what I spoke with another agent from our brokerage who I ran into at the showing. He said, yeah, it seems like they've applied East End pricing to this West End property.
So, but the and maybe this is the argument for how it's not as simple as we laymen like to make it, right? When we're talking about needing a real, like, why do you need a real estate agent to do this, right? You can just do it yourself.
Right.
So why would was there not the data? There has to be the data. The person can look and find the data. That's the point of the information you guys have, the information you guys have.
Right, but data can be read in any particular way. The houses in our neighborhood are they're not cookie cutter houses. There's either there aren't two the same, right? And if there are, they're still different, right? Because they're 60 plus years old. So you can't really say like they've all been updated in a different way. They might have the same layout, but the kitchen or whatever, different spot within the neighborhood. You can pull data. Yeah, everybody knows this. You can pull data to prove whatever point you're trying to prove, right?
100% of the time, it works 60% of the time.
Right, exactly. So my point being that there was one buyer for that house. They were the people who bid on it. They paid exactly what it was listed for. If it would have been listed for 1.2 instead of 1.150, would they have paid 1.2? You think $50,000 really makes that big of a difference if you're paying that kind of money for a house? That's your
It means
house.
way more to the seller than it does to the buyer.
Right,
Right?
exactly. Exactly.
Always. Financially speaking, don't ever lose a house over 5 grand, guys.
Right. Right.
I always said 50, but same principle.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one story from one house in the neighborhood. And then going to the other extreme, there was another house that came up for sale, and I door knocked on this lady's door. She was 95 years old. Unfortunately, excuse me, she passed away. I knocked on her door in the fall last year. No, I'm not leaving. You'll have to talk to my kids. I'm like, I don't know your kids, lady. I'm knocking on your door, asking for my clients who want to move into the neighborhood if you're willing to sell. That's it. That's all. I'm not going. I'm not furthering this. Here's my card. If you have some questions, let me know. Nothing. 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 The house, we walk by. It's part of our dog loop, right? Like we walk pretty much our whole neighborhood. It's not that big of a place. There's only like 6 or 7 streets. And so we saw the house being empty. We saw, the bin in front of the house, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, oh, okay, this is coming down the pipe. And then it goes up. And it goes up for 1025, 1,025,000. And I went through it. I looked at it. I'm like, ooh, this is not that other house that sold for 1150. I'm like, this needs everything. And we've got a few houses in our neighborhood that back onto tall towers, like retirement building towers, full of windows. So you go in the backyard, there's no privacy. I went and looked at it one day after school with my kid on the way home from school, and he went in the backyard. You know what his comment was? I can't be naked back here. Right?
Just as a side note of insight into what happens at the Tasse household on the weekends or on a Wednesday. Yeah. Careful in the backyard, kids. Careful in the backyard.
Hey, you know what? Our backyard is private. Our hedges are high. We did not cut them down when we put the fence in. That's what happens in the backyard, man. You got young kids. It is what it is. So anyway, yeah, you just knock on the gate before you come in. If it's ajar, it won't be because the dogs. Anyway, so that was the issue, right? The backyard is, and the house was dated, it was old, yada yada yada. So I showed it. I went through, and about a week and a half later, the listing agent calls me. Hey, I know you went through the property. What do you think? Well, you know what? I live around the corner. I look at all the houses in the neighborhood. I booked it as a preview. Yeah, that's fine. I said, how was your open house? I wanted to pop by and say hi. I know the guy. Again, Orleans agent, right? My house is in the West End. And so he's like, hey, what do you think? Da 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 da. I'm like, I'll run the math with you. I'll tell you what I think, but you're not going to like it. I said, based on everything, I think fair market value is 900. Whoa, 900. You think it's that low? I'm like, it's old. It needs everything inside it, and it's backing onto these, and it's a 4 bed, but it's a small 4 bed, right? Whereas this other one here, sure, it was old. It needed everything, and it was 1150, but it had 6 bedrooms upstairs, much bigger house on the inside, right? So he was not too keen on my number, but I really think maybe it's like 9.25 that it sells for. Yeah,
Still listed?
yeah. Still 10,
Price
20.
no price drop yet.
He's like, oh, well, I'm working with the executors and they have this idea in mind and da 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 da. I wasn't the only person who gave a bid on it. I'm like, okay, well, you bought the listing. Now, if you want to sell it, you're gonna have to come down, right? I'm like, why don't you just come down by 25 grand every 2 weeks until you get there? Well, I can't do that and da da da. I'm like, okay, man, well, sounds like your thing to do. It is what it is, right? Houses are worth what they're worth. This is why you hire a local agent. I'm not saying I should list every house in my neighborhood, but I'll tell you what a place is worth. That's a big swing from 900 to 1.2, right? That's a lot of house. So who knows?
Yeah. It's a lot of house, it's a lot of different financing too. Whole bunch of changes on that for sure.
Absolutely. So that is my story time about why you need to hire local. And like I said, the Orleans agents are reaching out to me to say, hey, what do you think it's worth? And I'll tell you, I'll candidly tell you what I think something's worth. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I am. That's it.
There it is.
Bring it on home. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody you think might like this conversation. You can download us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, watch us on YouTube. You can download the buyer or seller guides below, and you can schedule an appointment directly into our calendars below with the Calendly links. Rubber baby buggy bumper. I hope you have a beautiful day, you beautiful people, and until next time, keep it real.
Collective.